Welcome to the Cozy Historian. If you find yourself drifting off before the story ends, that's perfectly fine. Just remember to like and subscribe before you fall asleep. It helps these quiet journeys through time softly continue. And before your eyes grow heavy, tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are? And what's the last thing you did before bed? Tonight, we're traveling back to the very beginning of rest itself. So fluff your pillow, pull up your blanket, and let's drift back to the world's very first bed. But tonight, that bed is not the straw-filled tick of a medieval peasant, nor the velvet canopy of a Tudor noble. It is something humbler, gentler, the bed of a Victorian homemaker who has just completed her yearly ritual of renewal. The sheets smell faintly of lavender, the room glows with lamplight softened by polished glass, and beyond the window, the soft drizzle of April evening patters like a lullaby. It is spring, somewhere around 1885, and across Britain, from soot-grey London terraces to cottages along hedgerows, homes are waking from their long, coal-dusted sleep. In the Victorian imagination, spring cleaning was more than mere housework. It was a sacred ceremony of rebirth, a domestic Easter. The soot of winter fires had clung to draperies, picture rails, and carpets, leaving the very air thick with its presence. And so, as sunlight returned to the world, so too did women across the nation begin the slow, deliberate art of renewal, cleansing not only their homes, but their spirits. Inside one modest home on a quiet London street, a housemaid named Alice begins her morning with purpose. The air carries the first shy scent of lilac from the garden. She rolls up her sleeves, tightens her apron, and sets about preparing the tools of the day: soft soap, yellow as old honey, brushes with worn wooden handles, dusters, stiff with past victories, and a tin of beeswax that gleams faintly in the dim kitchen light. Her mistress, Mrs. Harcourt, descends the stairs moments later, not in her Sunday best, but in a plain cotton gown, sleeves rolled like a general's before battle. Together they form the gentle army of order. For today, their home will shed its skin. The great windows are unlatched and lifted, protesting softly as months of dust crumble from their frames. The heavy curtains are unhooked one by one and carried out into the pale spring air, where they sway on the line like banners of surrender. Cushions are set on the steps to breathe, carpets are rolled, and the furniture is shifted as though the very bones of the house are being rearranged. To the Victorians, this labor held moral weight. Cleanliness was not merely comfort, it was virtue made visible. A clean home, wrote Mrs. Beeton in her book of household management, is a reflection of a clean heart. Dirt, in the Victorian view, was a kind of spiritual disorder, a reminder of chaos lurking beyond the walls of civility. And so, soap became sanctified, water became grace. Mrs. Harcourt moves through her home with quiet determination. She checks corners where cobwebs might have escaped, inspects the brass fittings for tarnish, and directs the maids with a precision that would have impressed any colonel. From the parlour to the scullery, from the nursery to the narrow attic stairs, every inch of the house hums with the rhythm of renewal. Downstairs, Alice stokes the range to heat water for the great wash. Steam curls upward, fragrant with carbolic soap and lemon peel. She hums to herself, an old country tune her mother used to sing during haying season, and plunges the linens into the copper boiler. The air thickens with warmth and purity. The sound of scrubbing fills the room, soft and persistent, like the ocean against a patient shore. Outside, the carpets are beaten with long canes, each strike sending a cloud of winter into the sunlight. A neighbor leans over her gate to exchange gossip between strokes, and a small crowd of children gather to watch, delighting in the rhythm of it. Cleaning, after all, was never entirely private. It was a performance of respectability, a visible declaration that one's household was in order and one's morals intact. Inside, Mrs. Harcourt attends to the drawing room. The mantelpiece, that sacred altar of middle-class taste, receives its blessing of beeswax and care. She polishes the clock until her reflection appears faintly in its glass face. She dusts the portraits, her late parents, her husband in his railway uniform, as tenderly as if she were touching their hands. Every motion carries memory, and every gleam whispers of continuity. The piano, neglected since Christmas, is uncovered and wiped down, its black surface now mirror-like. As she passes, she plays a single chord, hesitant, soft, a ripple of sound that seems to stir even the dust motes into dance. There is satisfaction here, yes, but also something deeper. The act of cleansing brings stillness. The house, once cluttered and weary, begins to exhale. By mid-morning, the rooms are half transformed. Beds stand naked, their mattresses dragged to the garden to be aired. Sheets hang like sails, whispering in the breeze. Feather pillows, open to the light, release a faint scent of down and sleep. Even the smallest details are attended to. The silver candlesticks are polished to the point of near invisibility, and the hearthstones, once dulled by ash, gleam like new coin. The cook, below stairs, has joined the quiet chorus of Renewal. She scours the range with black lead until her reflection blinks back at her from its iron ribs. The copper pots are scrubbed with sand until they gleam like morning suns. For days afterward, even plain bread will taste faintly of triumph. And yet, for all its rigour, there is a poetry in this labour. The Victorians believed in the moral order of the world, in a universe where dust, like sin, could be scrubbed away through effort and devotion. A tidy home was not vanity. It was a visible testament to one's self-control, one's discipline, one's place in the divine design. Spring cleaning in that way became a domestic liturgy, a rhythm that echoed Lent and Easter, dust to dust, dirt to light. What was hidden brought into truth, what was weary made whole. As afternoon settles over the neighborhood, Mrs. Harcourt takes a moment to rest. She stands by the open window, feeling the faint breeze against her cheek. From the garden below, she can smell soap, beeswax, and the faint sweetness of drying linens. Her hands ache, her hair has come loose, but her eyes shine with quiet accomplishment. In the distance, a church bell rings. It is not Sunday, yet its tone seems to bless her labor. The maids laugh softly in the garden, teasing each other as they beat a final rug. Their voices mingle with the city's sounds, the clop of a horse on cobblestone, the rattle of a milk cart, the far cry of a chimney sweep calling his trade. Life moves forward, refreshed, renewed. When evening comes, the house seems to glow from within. Candles burn brighter against the polished glass. The silverware sparkles on the dinner table. The very air feels lighter, as though it too has been laundered. The family gathers in the parlour, Mr. Harcourt reading the Times, the children playing on the rug, the mistress at her needlework. Outside, the light fades to violet, and a hush settles over the clean rooms like a benediction. For all its labour, Spring cleaning was an act of love, a dialogue between a home and its keeper. It reminded its inhabitants that care itself was sacred, that order could bring peace, and that beauty often hid in the quiet corners, waiting to be found beneath the dust. That evening, when the last lamp is extinguished and the house falls still, the quiet is not ordinary. It has a weight, a softness, a density made of labor rewarded. The floors no longer creak under hidden grit. The curtains, faintly scented with starch and sunlight, hang with the crisp posture of contentment. The air feels awake, newly born. Mrs. Harcourt moves softly through the parlour, one hand brushing the cool edge of the polished table. She pauses by the fireplace and watches the final ember fade. In its reflection, she sees herself, not as mistress or worker, but as keeper, guardian of a small universe that has been set right again. Tomorrow, life will return to its usual rhythm. Letters to write, errands to run, children to scold gently for muddy shoes. But tonight, there is peace. The Victorians, perhaps more than any generation before or since, believed that the domestic world was a mirror of the soul. "The hearth is the heart of civilization," wrote one moralist in the English Woman's Domestic Magazine, "and she who tends it tends the world." To scrub a floor, then, was not merely to cleanse it, but to make a statement about the human condition, that we are capable of renewal, that the ordinary can be sanctified by care. In the following days, the Harcourt's home continues its gentle transformation. The wardrobes are sorted, one by one. Out go the heavy woolens of winter, folded and stored in camphor-scented chests. In their place, the lighter muslins of spring appear, soft whites, faded blues, the memory of last summer's garden captured in cotton. Shoes are brushed, hats re-ribboned, umbrellas inspected for hidden leaks. Even the family Bible receives its yearly dusting, the gilt edges bright once more beneath careful fingers. In the nursery, the children delight in the change. Their governess, Miss Whitby, seizes the occasion to rearrange her small kingdom. Fresh sheets on the beds, new flowers in the window, and the wooden toys polished until their painted faces shine. She reads to them that afternoon from Pilgrim's Progress, explaining in gentle tones that cleansing, in its truest form, is a kind of pilgrimage, a journey toward grace, however humble its path. The children listen, half understanding, half dreaming, as the scent of lavender drifts through the open door. Outside, the street glows with the slow light of early spring. The carriages have splashed mud on the paving stones again, but somehow it seems less offensive now, as if the very idea of dirt has been temporarily domesticated. The following morning, the house awakens to bird song. The parlour clock chimes softly. The kettle hums. Alice, the maid, is already at work again, polishing the silver teapot that has served 3 generations. She hums the same tune she did the day before, but slower now, a lullaby rather than a marching song. Her hands are red from soap and water, but her expression is content. There was, in this rhythm, something almost monastic. Though the Victorians filled their homes with possessions, antimacassars, porcelain figurines, family photographs, framed embroideries proclaiming "Home, sweet home," beneath the clutter lay a yearning for purity. The act of cleaning was a quiet rebellion against chaos, a statement that in one small place, at least, the world could be made right. As the Harcourt's home reaches the end of its transformation, the atmosphere changes. No longer the frantic energy of scrubbing and hauling, but the serenity of completion. Rooms now gleam softly under lamplight. Even the ticking of the clock seems gentler, as though time itself has been polished. On the final day, Mrs. Harcourt opens her writing desk and finds it immaculate. Every paper neatly folded, every quill sharpened, every inkwell shining. She sits and begins a letter to her sister in Bath, describing the satisfaction of a house reborn. "It is astonishing," she writes, "how the mere absence of dust can make one's thoughts feel clearer. I dare say even the soul itself benefits from the smell of beeswax." She smiles as she writes it, knowing her sister will tease her for her moralizing. But she also knows the truth of it, that spring cleaning is not a vanity, but a necessity of the spirit. Outside, London's narrow gardens bloom reluctantly. Daffodils nod beside sooty railings. In the distance, a church bell tolls, and chimney smoke drifts upward in threads, thin and hesitant, as though even the city itself is trying to wash its face. Evenings now are calm. The children sit before the fire, reading from their school books. Their father dozes behind his newspaper. The faint scent of polish lingers in the air like a hymn half remembered. And as Mrs. Harcourt darns a small tear in her husband's cuff, she finds herself humming under her breath, a quiet melody of satisfaction, of duty fulfilled and order restored. Beyond the walls of this small house, the entire nation hums with similar rituals. In grand manors and narrow alleys alike, women bend over basins, scrub steps, beat rugs, and wash curtains. Each motion is both practical and devotional. Some sing hymns as they work, others keep silent, their labour a form of private prayer. In Liverpool, a dock worker's wife kneels on her front step, scrubbing the stone until it gleams. To passers-by, it is a sign of respectability, proof that though her husband's hands are blackened with coal, her doorstep is white as faith. In Manchester, a young mother hangs out sheets that flap like white sails against a factory skyline. She cannot read Mrs. Beeton's book, nor afford carbolic soap, yet her small home gleams all the same, tended by love and endurance. In Edinburgh, a governess with ink-stained fingers beats a threadbare rug on the communal line and finds herself laughing. Laughter, for once, not a breach of decorum, but a declaration of spring. And in every city, the same gentle truth unfolds. Cleanliness, order, care. These are acts of hope, small yet defiant, performed in kitchens and parlours by hands that history rarely names. For it was women, above all, who shaped the rhythm of this season. Their labour stitched the domestic world together, unseen yet essential. The Victorians worshipped industry and progress, but in the quiet spaces between invention and empire, it was the steady sound of sweeping, polishing, and washing that truly kept civilization upright. Mrs. Harcourt understood this in her bones. She did not need pamphlets or sermons to tell her that a clean home mattered. She knew it each time she opened the window and let in the faint scent of lilac, each time she laid a fresh sheet upon a bed and watched it billow like a sail on calm water. In those moments, she could almost believe that time itself paused, that the world, weary though it was, could be made gentle again. And so the days passed, quietly, gracefully, until the season of renewal reached its close. One late afternoon, the sun slanted low across the drawing room, painting the walls with honey-coloured light. The window panes, newly washed, caught the glow and scattered it through the air in shards of gold. Dust motes danced, but only out of habit. There was no dust left for them to belong to. Mrs. Harcourt stood by the window, her hands folded loosely before her, and looked out onto the garden. The cherry tree was in blossom now, each petal a pale echo of snow. Beneath it, the mattresses that had once been aired there were long since returned indoors, yet the grass still carried faint impressions where they had lain. She smiled faintly at the memory of that first day, the flurry of effort, the laughter, the sense of purpose. It seemed strange that something as humble as soap and water could hold such meaning, but perhaps that was the lesson of it all, that the ordinary, done with love, becomes extraordinary. Her gaze moved back to the parlour, to the gleam of the table, and the faint shimmer of beeswax in the fading light. The room was simple, but beautiful in its simplicity. It felt alive, somehow, as though the house itself were breathing easier now, content after its long winter sleep. In that quiet moment, Mrs. Harcourt thought of her mother, who had once told her, "A home, my dear, is like a soul. It must be cared for gently, or it grows dim." She had not understood it then, but now, with her hands raw and her heart light, she did. Upstairs, the children's laughter drifted faintly down the stairwell. Alice was folding the last of the linens, humming again. Somewhere, a neighbour's piano played a slow waltz, the notes rising and falling like soft rain, and in that blend of sound and silence, of peace earned and shared, the spirit of spring cleaning revealed itself fully, not as drudgery, but as renewal. To clean, in the Victorian sense, was not simply to remove dirt. It was to polish memory, to tend the invisible threads that bound family, time, and care together. It was, in the end, an act of love, quiet, persistent, and enduring. The evening deepened. Candles were lit. Supper was served. The air held the faintest perfume of violets. Mr. Harcourt, weary from work, sat by the fire with his tea. The children, now sleepy, leaned against their mother's knee. The house hummed softly. Not with labour now, but with life. As Mrs. Harcourt looked around the room, the polished brass, the shining hearth, the laughter of her children, she felt a calm more profound than rest. She thought, this perhaps is what heaven feels like. Not perfection, but peace earned through care. And so, dear listener, as the candles fade and the night deepens, may your dreams be filled with the soft echoes of history. Until next time, sleep well.